Welcome, Kelvin. Thanks for jumping on, man.
Yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I remember back months ago we started talking about getting this done, so I'm glad we're finally here and able to show the world.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys moving really quickly on the integration. You guys knocked it out of the park.
Sweet. Let's give a quick agenda for everyone today. We're going to give a little intro to Scanifly for those who are not aware of who they are, what they do. Same with Enerflow. If any Scanifly people are here today but don't know Enerflow, I'll give you a quick overview of us. Take a quick poll to see who our audience base is today. Then we'll talk about the integration that we built, do a live demo, which are always fun, and then we'll get into next steps in QA. With that, I know we want to do that quick poll. All right, let's see what we got. So number one, Aurora. Then we got Aerolytic, Open Solar, Scanifly. Kelvin, you surprised to see Aurora as the number one on there?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, great tool. Been around a long time. Does not surprise me.
Yep. Well, that's great. Let's jump in. Was there another poll we are going to do, Rebecca? Apologize. Couldn't remember if we had a second one.
We do, but it's a little bit later.
Okay, perfect. So, Kelvin, as you get in here, I think a lot of people have known Scanifly for a while as like the drone design tool, which you guys have definitely established yourselves as the market. Today, you're talking about your prelim design. And maybe as you give your intro, also help us understand why the world needs another design tool. Enerflow has kind of taken the stance like we're not going to go try to solve this problem. A lot of other people have worked on it. You guys made a decision to move to the front end. You obviously had a great back end tool a lot of people were using. So maybe as you give the intro, you could help us understand why you guys as a company decided this was a problem you had to solve.
Yeah, it's a valid question, and I'd love to share a story about that. Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to work on this integration and partnership together. I've been in solar since 2011. I've sold solar. I've ran my own dealership. The last 4 years, I've spent helping a couple hundred contractors around the nation to work on their software workflows for solar and surveys. And that experience, to your question, has taught me that there is a real need for balancing speed and efficiency. And that is what brought me to Scanifly, is the unique combination of being able to run an AI layout in a few seconds and then back that up with inch accurate drone modeling for ops. And that's only so powerful as being tied into a great workflow for sales. And that's what you guys do really well. So, can you sell fast and also install fast? And that's been a really hard challenge for the industry as it's grown over the last couple decades. What I see with Scanifly and what we're going to talk about today is, can you enable sales to move really quickly with AI layouts? Can you also have all of the feature sets that you need from a design tool to take you all the way to CAD and install? And that's a big gap that the industry is facing is everyone wants a quick layout, but then you're stuck with lack of features. And then your option is to go spend a ton of money to go use Aurora. And so Scanifly is that nice in between of balancing cost and features. So really excited to go through that with you guys today.
That's awesome. You kind of mentioned that as
There you
well.
go.
Yeah, you had a slide ready. So,
We had a slide ready. Yeah. Not to be too long-winded about it, but what I've heard from contractors the last 4 years is they're either spending too much on their sales software or they've swung all the way to the other end of the spectrum to cut costs, but then they cut a lot of corners and features.
sure.
And you paint yourself into a corner there that's tough to get out of. So some of the most profitable EPCs in the country are realizing that the sweet spot is in between.
That's awesome. Well, for those not familiar with Enerflow, and as you mentioned, Kelvin, we are a sales platform, really the platform for solar, and we do much more than just the sales front end. We can track everything from a lead to PTO. We've been around for a while, so it's crazy to think that I started this company 7 years ago. We're
Wow.
still grinding here, but we've been able to do a lot, and really our focus is integrations, taking all these different pieces you were talking about that can a lot of times lead to lack of efficiency and bringing it into one unified platform. And that's the thing I'm excited to demo today is showing how you can use Scanifly, but inside of the Enerflow tool so that you don't have to be logging in and out of all these different places to accomplish
Yeah.
a deal. And for us, a lot of our customers come all the time and they'll be like, hey, I'm struggling with this design tool. What one can I use? What one works the best in Interflow? Which integration should I think? And so we're excited to add the Scanifly logo here as one of our top integrated design tools and kind of show how that fits in. But besides the design piece, what Interflow really focuses on is the entire workflow. So financial integrations with providers, especially TPO providers, all the major ones on around Interflow, tying back into CRM. So a lot of customers they've invested a lot of time into Salesforce or QuickBase or other tools, and they don't want to move off those. It's okay. We can pull and synthesize that data. And then we just launched a new reporting suite a few weeks ago, which we're really excited about as well. And any Scanifly data that we talk about today would go into that reporting suite too, through the API that we have. So that kind of gives an overview of who we are. And I think that's why today it's exciting to think about the two together. So we have another quick poll, and then we'll jump into talking about the integration that we built together and the benefits there. So if you want to launch that one, Rebecca.
You see it?
I do.
Mhm.
What's
Yes.
the biggest challenge your team faces when moving from design to proposal? So inaccurate or incomplete site data, time loss switching between tools, miscommunication between sales and design teams, proposal errors or mismatched data. Kelvin, why is this one important to understand?
I mean, the thing that you have to think about as a contractor is when you're making a move software wise, is it going to simplify things? And am I going to mess things up for my entire team? Are they going to hate me? And so we have those conversations every day. So what you want to do is try and simplify and not have to bounce around from one place to another. As you know, Pat, anytime there's manual entry or there's a human inserted into the process, you have things break down quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we kind of see that from the results here. So 27% inaccurate data, time loss switching between tools, proposal or mismatched data. Again, those kind of all fall in that same thing. If your tools you're using don't seamlessly talk to each other using
Yep.
APIs, you can have a lot of data loss. At Interflow, manual entry is like a curse word. We just don't say that because if we ever, produce something that requires people to hand type in stuff, that's not
Yeah.
the way we're going to bring the industry forward. So let's highlight some of the things we did with this integration. So I know back when we started talking about this a few months ago of what we could build together, one of the things that excited me was taking the best features you guys had to offer, marrying those with the Interflow features, and really together, that's where it's kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 scenario.
Mhm.
And so we'll go through this today, but essentially think of Interflow being the starting or the jumping off point to create that Scanify that project, building that design in Scanifly, being able to sync it back automatically, all that design data, and then using that to power the proposal that we'll show today in the Interflow proposal. Then obviously your guys' accuracy is critical. We also have title checks and other things that help reduce change orders, which I'll demo. And again, those paired together with your design accuracy is really crucial. And then, as I mentioned before, with our integrations, any Scanify design can work with the TPO providers. I know you guys have worked to get approvals from TPO providers,
Mhm.
and so people can feel confident that they can use it. And then, as we were mentioning, less back and forth and kind of having to, we make it really easy to go in and out of the tools to sync the data properly.
Yeah, the TPO is a big deal for next year. And the challenge that I'm seeing contractors face is when the sales design has issues, how do you true that up and handle that change order seamlessly within one experience? If you're using separate tools for sales and ops, it's really difficult when you're doing that in a TPO type
Yeah.
environment like we're going to see next year. So that can't be understated, I think.
Yeah, and we see a lot of people doing that. They use a different design tool on the front end, maybe because it's cost or speed, and then they have this kind of true up thing they have to go through, which can lead to
Yep.
change orders and other issues because you're fundamentally using two different tools out of two different models.
Yep.
And that can be hard to get those two to match up. Well, it's time for live demo time. So let's cross our fingers and hope that interconnect connections and data centers and all those things don't go down while we're doing this. But I'm excited to show the world what this looks like. So what we're going to start with
Yep.
is a home that, in this case, where I'm starting Interflow, this is the new deal creation screen. I'm saying, hey, I'm ready to start a new deal. Put in an address. I'm going to confirm the location. And then I'm going to select what deal template I want to use, which think of a deal template in Enerflow as your stages that you want a rep to go through before he's done. And that can look very different for every company. And so it's very flexible in Enerflow how to build that. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then we're going to start with a couple things that I want to point out on Enerflow feature base. So some people think Enerflow is just a proposal tool, and we do so much more than that. It's actually all the things we do around proposals that give a lot of the efficiencies and things that are really critical. So one thing just to point out, when you're creating a deal template in Enerflow, you can create any stages or questions you want. A lot of times you might want to ensure that your setter asks a question like, are they in an HOA? The last thing you want is for that later to come, the ops team, they get it in project review, realize they're in an HOA, have to go back to the rep, say, hey, you didn't tag it as an HOA. We need to get the disclosure form or approvals or other things. It would have been so much better to know that up front, so people can work that into their workflow. If you're in a area with a lot of HOAs, you can make it a required question. The setter then has to say yes or no. If they say yes, you can then bring down additional requirements that you want to be filled out. And then this could also trigger a contract to be added to the contracting template later. So again, it's a more of a measure twice, cut once approach, but this leads to a lot of efficiency. The other thing I want to point out is our ability to run title checks. So this is really huge, especially when we're talking about integrations with financiers. The last thing you want, and you've been in solar a long time, Kelvin, so if I'm talking to you and maybe your middle name's James, and you go
Yep.
by James and you sign as James Hayes, later the ops team does a review and it's like, oh wait, it's actually Kelvin, and that's a whole change order just to fix a name on a contract.
Yep. So frustrating.
So we have it in Interflow to pull the title. I can see really quickly, oh, this is actually Lorna Watson, not Scanifly webinar. I can then make the change here, match up the first name, last name, and then say, sweet. And now the contact has changed to Lorna Watson. And now when I do the TPO application, when I do the contracting, anything else, that is all changed. That's a change order I just avoided because of a simple step that is inside of Interflow. So now we'll jump into getting a design prep. So obviously consumption is going to be important. One thing to point out with the integration is that Interflow is a source of truth for consumption. There's a few reasons why that's important. I'll kind of show that later. But inside of Interflow, we can easily select from a dropdown. This is fully integrated with Genability using their rate tiers and structure. And then I'm just going to save this for now because I want to show later how I can actually make modifications to this. So we'll save a consumption profile, then we'll jump into a design. So now in the design dropdown, if you're using Scanifly, it shows up, and then I have a couple different types of things I can do. So one, I can do a self-design. This would be a case where I'm a rep and I'm knocking a door and I want to get a proposal very fast and build it myself. Or maybe a design team where I want, an internal design team or external design team to build that design for me and then send it back to me and let me make modifications. So we'll actually demo both of these. But for now, I'm going to start with the self-design. We do have the ability to create a project for a drone design. I think for today's purposes, we're going to show the prelim design or the remote design using satellite imagery. And now I have some selections, so I can say what consumption profile I want to push over. I can obviously select my panel, inverter, and then these are really important for adders later in Interflow to mark what type of roof we're working on. Now, I want to mention one of the cool things we did with you guys, and I like the flexibility in your system, is we can actually push panels and inverters to you. So if I select this panel here, when that project is created, that is set as the default panel when the design's being built. And even if that panel wasn't in the module library in Scanifly yet, it'll automatically sync over. So it's a very good integration in the sense of keeping equipment updated. All right, so you ready to see if your AI works today? So
Let's do it.
all right, let's do it. So what this does now when I save it, it's going to create a design card in Interflow. It's basically saying, hey, this is staged and ready, but we need to build that Scanifly design. You can see this quick link here, view in Scanify. It's going to take me right into the project. Now, why don't you give a quick overview of kind of this
Sure.
screen and the idea between simple mode and pro mode and how you guys have developed that?
Yep. This is purpose built for sales to keep them on the rails. And I realize I just rhymed, but I'll go with it. The key here is to keep it simple, to let AI look at all of the layers to build a solar system on top of this roof. So we're going to take a look at imagery. We're going to take a look at LiDAR, Google 3D. We're going to populate a system and allow the rep to make very basic edits to the system once it's done. So this is meant for, as you mentioned, Pat, the guy at the door, or as you're heading out to a sales visit to make the design as fast as possible. And the key to this is speed, right? We want to give the rep something to start with where they don't need to outline roof segments. They don't need to worry about trying to place panels on certain areas. And you can see that the irradiance is populating over the top. So in the left menu here, you're able to update utility information. You can also, if you click on the system drop down, make some basic edits. So you can set the grid to allow panels to be moved into. Exactly. So you can highlight panels to turn on or off, and then you can also delete them. You can put panels into layout or into portrait. Really fast, super easy to use. And the key to this is the ability to back into Pro Design when you're using a design request flow. And that's where you get all of the extra features that you need to really get something to install. So fast for sales, you can delete the panels, put them where you want, and then sync it into Enerflow to run with it.
That's awesome. So yeah, we just kind of witnessed the 3D, being built right away as we were watching, and you can see it builds a 3D design, which is cool. Again, there might be little tweaks. We see this with any design tool where there might be like little weird things that AI does, and those can always be solved in Pro mode. So, it can be switched over to Pro mode or maybe sent to your back office to maybe make a tweak before you get to the site. But
Yep.
again, from that speed standpoint you were talking about, very fast. We just watched it happen in real time. And then now I can save this and bring it back to Enerflow. So all I really have to do, and one thing I wanted to point out is this utility bill information, this came from Enerflow's consumption profile. So that same one that was built before, it pushes over, really no modifications need to happen there at all. And then the system details, this is what's automatically going to be synced back into Enerflow to make that proposal ready. So one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take off the irradiance map, going to go to details, then we're going to finalize the design. And this is really where now you guys are going to do like your final shading stuff and getting everything ready. Obviously, it's a ton of data. You're running through every, what, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, hour for production for the whole, year. So
Yep.
you guys doing all that data syncing, and then that's going to allow me to sync it back to Enerflow. So once we get this green check mark, I'll know the design has been finalized. Then in Enerflow, all this data will sync back automatically.
One piece while this is loading is bankability with finance partners. Many of them, as to the top of the call, your comment about design tools kind of flooding the market, the lenders aren't really interested in trying to verify more and more AI layout tools. So
Yeah.
because Scanifly is bankable across all finance partners, slotting the AI in is very easy, and you know you can still transact.
That's awesome. So we saw here while he was talking, I came back, I clicked the sync button, it pulled everything over automatically. It pulled over the system size, obviously the details. You can see I have every array, I have pitch, azimuth, solar axis, all the data that is required for TPOs because they need that data when you use their pricing engines to get data back. And so we pull that from Scanifly, then we can use it with our integrations to get pricing. To point out a couple other cool features here, I can actually jump in back into Pro mode or Simple mode, or I can clone this design. So if I needed another version ready, I can quickly clone that, make whatever changes, bring that back in Interflow, and I can use that to build my proposal. So once we have a design ready, I want to show how this can easily create a proposal and then also how additional changes can be made later. Because again, maybe in the situation you were talking about, Kelvin, I need something quick just to get me a starting point. When I'm with the customer, maybe that's when I start making tweaks. I get the bill, I look at an actual, I then need to update consumption, maybe then change offset. So kind of
Mhm.
show how that workflow works. I can then create a proposal, use my Scanify design. I'll just do a simple finance deal for now. We can show TPO in a little bit. Then I'm going to run that pricing. And one thing I want to show that's really cool, we were talking about change orders and costs and just making sure everything's right the first time. One thing we're going to notice here is if we come into Interflow's pricing engine, it auto-detected a few things. And I think people gloss over this with Interflow, but this is another cool thing with the integration we built with you guys. You can actually see here that when the system design comes back, if I have an adder that says, hey, anytime it's a bigger than 10 kilowatts, I want to add $1,000, that adder automatically gets added. So as a rep, I never have to remember that. I don't have to remember like, oh, small system adder, a high pitch adder, anything black and white, Enerflo programs those in. And you can even see this one. We have a travel ladder. So it's like, hey, this address is in a travel ladder market. And so I need to add 10 cents a watt to that. All of that happens automatically behind the scenes to make sure pricing is up to date and as accurate as possible. Again, to limit change orders that could happen later. So then when we jump into this proposal, this is now the customer facing view. Can do some really cool things. And again, with our integration to make it easy to make changes right there with the customer. So for people who haven't seen our Optimus proposal tool yet, this is going to load up and this really becomes how I can walk the customer through. A lot of this is customizable. You guys could show some cool drone imagery here instead of this grove showing in the background. You can also go from kind of a left to right flow to a vertical flow. We launched this recently where you can do kind of a vertical flow instead of left and right. But you see, we have a huge library of different assets that can be added. And then those can be turned on or off. You guys can add your own custom content. So there's a lot of flexibility here. But we get into design. This is one of my favorite features of I'm talking with a customer now. Obviously, 156% offset's probably way too big, but I wanted to maybe get somewhat of a max fit before I go with them. And then I need to make some changes. So while I'm with the customer, I can click this little drop down. And what I can do is unlock this and say, okay, I need to make a couple changes. One, that consumption. Okay, now that I'm with the customer, I'm looking at last month's bill. I need to make a quick change. So I'm going to click here on the consumption profile, open it up what we saw before. I'm going to put in actually their October bill was actually 800 kilowatts. So it was a little bigger than the estimate. We're going to rerun along the curve what their annual usage is. I'm going to click save. And what's really cool is this is now going to push to Scanifly. And so it's going to update that Scanifly consumption. So if I do make changes, the offset is synced between Enerflo and Scanifly. So that is now updated. Now I want to make a change in Scanifly, click my open in Scanifly button, goes right to that simple mode we were showing before. You can see the offset just got updated to match Enerflo automatically. And now I can, remove maybe a few more panels to get to that spot that's going to be better for this customer. So let's remove those. Get down to, now I'm at 87%. Let's get back to 100. Obviously, don't judge me on my array placement. So we're going to finalize that design again. It's going to go through again. It's looking at, I know you guys actually look at shading per panel, which is really important. Maybe you should talk about kind of LiDAR and other data sets you guys have to determine your shading.
Yep, absolutely. One of the pieces that I want to touch on is how amazing what you guys have done here. This is more than just an API token and a sync. You guys are allowing for flexibility throughout the sale. And we all know if you're sitting at the kitchen table, 5 minutes feels like an hour. And when you can come in and just do a few clicks and update things, it's amazing. What I'm seeing be very popular now is some of the best EPCs in the country have a deal desk that will do a max fill, and then the rep shows up and has this and is able to make these edits without having to go back and forth with the design team. So these are the ways you speed things up without cutting corners. As far as the layers for how we come to a certain shading number, so important when you're competing against others that are going to have those shade factors set. We're going to look at LiDAR, we're going to look at Google 3D, we're going to populate the imagery over the top of it, and we're going to use all of the same data sets that the other remote tools have access to. So this has been a paradigm shift for the whole industry, is that whether it's Aurora or others, they're all using the same weather stations, the same LiDAR, the same facts to get you to where you're at. So what you're getting here is something you can count on if you're coming from, say, Aurora, that's going to stack up really well and allow you to sell with the same level of confidence.
That's awesome. So we made that change. Come back to my proposal. Just click my sync button in here. I don't have to go all the way back to the deal flow we were showing before. I can do it right inside of my proposal. You're going to see this magically update to 104%, but it's also going to rerun pricing right when the update happens. So anytime that update happens for the design, it automatically is going to also regenerate pricing. And then anything else in the proposal, so as I'm talking about, production, consumption, anything else, that all changed right when that design sync happens. We refresh the entire thing. The other thing I want to point out, which is really cool, and this is more how Enerflo, again, can add on to this design, is you can then attach a battery. So take that Scanifly design, use our battery modeling tool. I can say, okay, cool, to maybe reach my self-consumption goal and keep some backup power. This is the recommended battery I should use. And it's really easy to then attach it to this design. It'll add the cost, and then we will automatically do any impacts to consumption modeling for the rest of the year and savings. And so it's very accurate in how we do that. We've done other webinars and talked about our battery attachment and how that all works. But once that gets attached, we're actually looking at every hour for the next 30 years on whether I'm charging that battery, pulling from the battery, shaving the battery. So a lot of cool stuff. And then when we are looking at, again, these financial impact slides and savings, all those things are there and can be shown to the customer. So now I want to jump back out to back to the design. Wanted to just show kind of TPO real quick, and then we'll get into that design queue, which I think is important for what you were talking about of, well, how about I just send this to a desking team, they kind of build it for me, and then it's ready for me in the field. I'll just clone this real quick and kind of show that I could select light reach, for example, or I think in this case, what I have, maybe Good Leap. Let me see what TPO I have available. Actually might be restricted, but we'll see. And then, yeah, so now I can pick, my financing product, and it's automatically going to pull up my rate table. And again, this is using all the characteristics from that Scanifly design. We're sending it over to GoodLeap or LightReach, whatever TP provider. They send back the data we need, and then we can make those pricing adjustments. So let's go into that workflow then. Let's come back to designs. And what I can do now is I'm going to say I need a new Scanifly design. This time I'm going to do a design team. And maybe I'll make some notes for the designer. Maybe I was on, maybe I'm the setter submitting this design request. I've seen a lot of different ways people do this. But maybe we'll say like, hey, the tree in the front isn't there anymore. I mean, this happens all the time. Satellite imagery can be a couple years old. Maybe they've reduced the tree. LiDAR might still be showing it. And so we need to make sure the design team's aware of that to remove that. So what I can do now is I'll call this design team, use my same stuff, click save. And what's really cool about this is it's leveraging our internal design queue that we've built, Enerflow's maintained for a long time, but again, introducing the ability to use a Scanifly design there. So this shows up here. There's the Lorna Watson one. The desk, team is going to get this. They're going to see the notes from the rep. They're going to see the inverter and module preferred, see the consumption utility bill, or if a utility bill has been uploaded, it'll show there as well. And then as a designer now, what I can do is click design in Scanifly. And what this is going to do is actually open up the pro mode for me. And we're not going to give a whole feature tour of pro mode. There's a lot going on here. And we kind of already built the AI design and the other things showing that. But what I can do is I can also just use the interface we have to sync that design and bring it back. And as a rep, as I'm waiting for this design, I can chat with the designer. They can send stuff back and they can have a conversation to make sure that the designer has what they need. The designer is then going to submit that design, and then it comes back into Enerflow, and that's a design I can then use and go into simple mode, make whatever changes I need, and then go right into proposal. So that's one thing we're excited about to introduce here as well for those teams using Scanifly, where they say, hey, I don't want reps doing self-designs. I always want to build the design first and then only let them use simple mode. That's something that we've been able to create as well for that experience.
Yeah, I want to add one thing that I believe is going to rock the industry next year, and that is we're seeing sales teams use a model that was popular with alarms, where you knock the door, you sell the customer, and then a truck comes in and does the work. And what we're seeing with drones is a team will go out, they'll have one person that is qualified to fly the drone. Their whole job is to get the inch accurate data in 5 minutes while the sales rep moves on to the next site. And that'll be able to populate in here. And related to the tree comment that you made, Pat, Scanifly allows you to delete trees from the design in Pro mode and regenerate the shading accurately. So you're not guessing what that tree is going to do when you remove it. Now you know exactly when you sign the deal what the production is going to be when that tree is gone. So it's, again, you've got to have all the feature sets if you want to nail these designs up front.
That's awesome. Yeah, so to round this out, and then we can jump to Q&A and talk about next steps. After, again, I have my proposal, I would finalize one in Enerflow. After finalizing, you move into financing and contracting, because those are the other things that the Enerflow platform does. And it really makes those seamless integrations. I can fill out my dividend application right here, can also generate my contracts, and Enerflow's proprietary contracting platform will decide in real time what contracts are needed for this customer. And so you can see, like, for example, it decided, oh, this is California, so I need the consumer protection guide. Oh, it was PG&E, so I need the customer authorization form to be added. And so whatever forms contractors want to have at time of sale, those can all get signed inside of Enerflow. And then that again leads to less issues downstream because the customer's already signed off on the things you know you're going to have them sign off on. And then once that's all done and completed, we have one of my favorite features, which is project submission. And this is where an installer gets to say, hey, I am not going to receive a job from you, sales rep, until you have done everything I've asked you to do. And that is just going to improve review cycle times because if the rep has uploaded the bill, they've signed the contracts, they've ensured the customer signed financing and was approved. Maybe they take a picture of a roof, maybe they, do a quick site survey, whatever is needed, the installer can say what those things are, and then the rep can't actually push it to the installer and the review team until those things are done. And that we see cuts down change orders as well because it's really that perfect packet and enforcing that's really critical here.
Yep. And Scanifly has a free mobile app for Android and iOS that allows you to do checklists. You can do it for sales or surveys, and you can upload pictures, checklists, whatever you need, and it could populate directly in here as well.
That's awesome. Well, let's go into next steps. The live demo worked great, so we're happy to see that. Let's talk about how people can get this if they are interested. The integration is available to all partners that are on Enerflow and Scanifly. They would need a Scanifly subscription and an Enerflow subscription. And I know Calvin, our teams will easily help make those referrals and make that as easy as possible. We can then quickly enable it. So once you have a Scanifly account, we just create a quick API key, we plugged it in, and you're off to the races. And just want to reiterate the benefits of this is saving time. We showed how fast we can use your AI design, bring that back in, have a proposal. I mean, we're talking under 2 minutes. You could have a full-blown proposal ready for a customer. And then also how title checks and product submission, and then your guys' accuracy and other features really reduce those change order times. So really excited for what we built here. Scan the QR code or go to enerflow.com/Scanifly for next steps. And then let's jump into QA. I know a few are coming in here. So let me pull this up. And then Rebecca, you can help me too if I'm not able to hit all these. So
For sure.
got one for you, Kelvin. Setbacks accounted for in the integrated Scanifly design tool.
Yes, 100%. Yep. So you can set them by default, and then also you have the ability to edit them within Pro mode. So one of the pieces is simple mode is designed to restrict the sales rep. So whatever you set for setbacks, the sales rep is not going to be able to get off the rails and start changing things in a way that totally derails the design.
Perfect. I see a question from Felipe asking about, they say their system doesn't show another option other than Aurora. I'm assuming they're an Enerflow customer. That is because we do need to enable the Scanifly integration. As I mentioned, you need to be signed up for Scanifly before it will show up. Once you do that, then we plug it in and then it would be an option for you.
And it's really fast. We're already having it happen. A couple first early movers, and Thomas and the team have enabled it within an hour or less.
Yeah, it's quick. Yeah, awesome. Got one from Tyler. How accurate is the AI versus drone models? When you move to pro mode, can you upload drone photos still? So maybe it's you guys have compared remote versus drone. What is that accuracy discrepancy? And then, yeah, if you're on pro mode, can you upload a different photo?
Yeah,
Drone
a
data?
good way to visualize it is remote data is accurate to about the size of a basketball, so 8 to 10 inches, which can really matter. That could be a
Sure.
vent pipe or a
Yeah.
skylight or a fire setback. When you go to drone modeling, you're accurate down to an inch. So what we've seen, and the stories are told pretty prolifically at this point, is when you drone, and if it's done at survey, great, you will have 0 revisions and 0 as-builts. So you know what you're designing is going to go straight to install without any surprises. So there is a big difference between remote and on-site, as we call it. And it's why organizations like the Energy Trust of Oregon and others are willing to trust on-site data more when it comes to solar production.
Yeah, and I think it's just being transparent with the market too, of saying, look, when you're doing satellite imagery, you only can get so good.
Yeah.
And so you guys are obviously going to try to make it as accurate as you can, but it'll probably never achieve the accuracy as flying a drone because, as you mentioned, it's just kind of two different data sets. It's not apples.
You're 4,000 to 40 miles above the Earth versus 40 feet. The
Yeah,
other piece is Scanifly stitches it all together in a computer generated model. So the trees and the structure are photorealistic, generated by a computer. So you're not having a human draw a lollipop tree and try to match it to the shape of LiDAR that's 5 years old.
that's awesome. All right, looks like an info question. Hey, well, love the contract automation. Do we have to designate which extra docs are required in the contracts? Does Enerflow do that on our behalf? Does it work the same way as DocuSign? Yeah, great question. So, a couple things. One, we do maintain a library of docs you may want to have. So if you're in, California, the CPUC, obviously, we maintain that. We'll make updates. There's a new disclosure form that just got added in November, for example, in California. We automatically were ahead of that. But there are like small little utilities, interconnection docs we might not have in our library. So usually in onboarding, we'll ask for whatever those are. You give us the latest version, we'll make sure those are updated. But then you get to decide as well and say, hey, if I am in California and I'm selling dividend, I want this contract. If I am in Utah and I'm selling Sungage, I want this contract. And so you create those templates and those rules, and then the contract packet will generate automatically for you in 3 seconds. So you have the perfect contract packet in real time. And then it gets sent out to the customer just like a DocuSign. We track the entire signing history all the way through. We have an envelope report at the end. So it does replace DocuSign for you if you're currently using that in your current flow. Future plans to bring simple mode directly in Enerflow versus opening a new tab. So yeah, I know you guys have added a new embed feature. I think when we were originally talking, it was a little early for you guys. I think you started doing that more. What is the history so far with embed? How's that working? And then I can answer the Enerflow side.
Sure. Yeah. Most of this year has been spent on R&D and deploying that strategically. So we've learned a lot, and going into next year, we will definitely be exploring that with Interflow. And to your point, it's live in Interflow, never have to leave it, and get everything you need to get done faster. So totally
Awesome.
aligned.
Yeah, so on the Enerflow side, as soon as we both feel good about, ready to deploy that, we'll start looking at that. And then really what we'll change, instead of that link out to do stuff, it'll just be all right there. Make your changes, click sync. It's going to be great. So yes, plans to do it. No ETA yet, but both of our groups will keep staying aligned to make sure we can add that. Kelvin, you mentioned Scanify strikes the right balance of accuracy and pricing. How is Scanify's pricing structured? And Interflows, I'm seeing monthly volume, but not sure what it refers to. So I think they want pricing answers from both of us. So you go first.
Sure.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
We make it really easy. We use the model the whole industry is used to, which is to pick the amount of projects you want to do for unique addresses for sales. So we can go based on project allotment for the year. And then also we allow you to pick whether or not you're going to do the designs yourself, or if you want to have design services, which Scanify also can offer built into the Interflow queue. So everything from do it yourself, have a deal desk, have AI run it, or have us create essentially an expert design for you and sync it over within a few hours. Yeah, when you chat with us, we'll figure out exactly where you land.
Okay. And then on the Interflow side, the way we price is sizing you up based on how many contracts you sign a month. So let's say you sign 40 contracts a month, that'll put you in a bucket, a tier of maybe 35 to 50 contracts to let you kind of grow within that. You then have a price, and then we will look every 3 months on a rolling average. So as you grow, your price will increase. As you shrink, your price will decrease. That's how typically we do it with Interflow. Each of our TP providers have their own approved equipment. We also need to be pushed towards more US manufactured components. What are the ways we're able to account for these and ensure our teams use the right equipment and financing? I can take a stab at that. Maybe you can add anything else. So in Interflow,
Sure.
when you are creating your module library, you're going to pick from our global list. You'll say, hey, I have this Hanwha Q cell. You then have the ability to override the name. So what we see people typically doing is they'll add a dash DCA, maybe a dash DCA light reach or DCA good leap, just to inform the rep, like, hey, this panel, this is what you want to use on this design. And then we have this new feature in Interflow where we can actually invalidate. So if I try to run a light reach deal with the wrong panel, that I'm not going to get the domestic content, and you want to enforce that to the rep, we'll actually invalidate it and say, sorry, rep, you can't use this panel with this financer. So we're doing things on our side to match it up. It does require the installer to make those rules in Interflow. We're not going to kind of manage that on everybody's behalf, but you can easily set those rules and then ensure reps are only using the equipment that you want them to use by the financer. And then when that design is created, as we were showing before, we automatically push that module to Scanifly. So if it's not in that module library, it will push over and then it can be selected. Not sure if you want to add anything on the Scaniflow side, but that's what we're doing on the Enerflow side.
No, you nailed it. I think that's, I'll leave you with that.
Okay, awesome. Actively evaluating design tools. How does this compare to using Enerflow with tools like Aerolytic or Aurora? What's on the roadmap? I think today, from a comparison feature set, it would be similar to if you've used Aurora inside of Enerflow, very similar. You're deep linking, you're creating projects, you're going in a new tab, you're syncing it back over. Very similar. We've done a little more with Scanifly on how we sync equipment, as I mentioned. That's a little better. Consumption profile syncing, a little improved. So again, I think it's pretty on par with what you might be experiencing with other ones. The biggest difference with Aerolytic is today that is embedded in Enerflow. As we talked about a few minutes ago, you guys are adding embed technology. We will be adding that to Enerflow. And then from a user experience standpoint, it should be right on par with all the other design tools. So I wouldn't say that with what we built with you guys is any less than what we have. I think in a lot of cases there's improvements and there's even more that we can do together.
Yeah, and if you're coming up on a renewal, I can speak from the many contractors that have made the switch that you will experience savings moving over to Scanifly from Aurora. So our pricing is specifically designed to be more competitive, and then tying the accuracy on the back end is something we're the only ones doing. So it's hopefully a good combination for everyone.
That's awesome. All right, got another one. If we're already paying for Scanify and we're paying a little more for Aerolytic, does our cost change if we were dropping Aerolytic? I mean, that would be very specific to your contract with Enerflow. So reach out to your PSM. You can ask them about that, and we can see what that would look like. So, man, good QA session there.
Rapid
And
fire.
yeah, I think that kind of rounds them out. Rebecca, are there any others that we saw come through we might want to ask?
Yeah, I think there's one more. You mentioned drone design is coming to the integration later. Will that cost extra or is it already included if we already have both subscriptions?
Yes, drone design is a separate modeling engine, so it does have a per project cost to it. And we break that out so you have options. You can either decide to only use remote tools, which we can support, or you can use drone design and the combination.
And then on the Interflow side, it wouldn't change the integration or fees or anything. It would seamlessly drop back in and we can sync those as well.
Perfect. And we have just one more, and then I think that'll do it. What happens if we need to make changes to a design after it's already synced into an Enerflow proposal? Can we edit it without breaking everything?
Yeah, so I kind of showed that in the demo. Very easy to sync back out, make your changes, sync it back in. One thing I didn't show is we can also sync the entire project. So if you actually in Scanify make a bunch of designs, you can sync the entire project and we'll bring every design back in Interflow to then have them be chosen from. So once you finalize a proposal in Interflow, then we won't keep making updates at all. You actually can't sync that design anymore because if it's locked in a proposal or financing, we don't want something to break or happen. So that would be kind of the only time where we stop syncing project or design data is if that design is selected in a proposal that is, being used for a finance application or contracting. But other than that, consumption data, design data will continue to sync seamlessly.
Yeah,
And
I'll take it one step further, and that goes back to the issue with running an AI layout that isn't connected to your survey team. You now have a change order that's difficult to calibrate. When you use Scanifly and you run that drone design, now you see our sales design was 2% off from where reality is. Let's sync that directly, and you don't need to redo the design. You don't need to change anything. It's just automatically built into the workflow. And then eventually we'll be able to push that over into Enerflow. So I think it just means everyone's going to be able to sprint to install a lot faster without a bunch of back and forth.
It's awesome. Well, thanks, man. That was fun.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me on, and the Scanifly team is very excited for this.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining today and appreciate your time. And we're excited for this new integration.
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you both so much. That was
Yep.
fantastic. Please visit enerflow.com/Scanifly for more information. Get started.